Okay, welcome to our presentation. This is our semester project, part 2, by Madison, Kayla, and Nessa. Our initial project was to kind of think about the relationship between clients and, or like humans and nature, like especially kids. What does access to outdoor spaces with like, recess or parks have, what kind of benefit do those have on the mental health of kids? So we found some good research. We found some good questions, especially there was a lot of research out there on especially the COVID years where people were really disconnected. They were inside and kind of the impact that that had. So the social worker that we found was a friend of mine. Her name is Sadie Feister. She is an LCSW here in Salt Lake Valley, and she's a case manager at one of the local hospitals here, as well as a mental health therapist. So she does both of those. So she has plenty insight into the various communities here in Salt Lake. Initially in our conversation, what I found was that I probably wasn't thinking small enough. I was thinking probably too big. So the difference between micro and macro, because I was thinking of things like climate change, pollution, as things that are in our environment that might impact the mental health of children. But Sadie focused me back in on the micro and was like, no, kids, like family, their home, their school, those are all part of their environment and have major impacts on a child's well-being, especially things like, divorce or frequent moves can also have big impacts. But that also, things like having asthma that can limit physical activities really impacts some, a kid's social identities. As they spend less time outdoors because they, especially if they live somewhere like on the West Valley where pollution is a little bit higher, they could really like have an impact on their mental health and their identity. Some of the barriers that we talked about were a couple of things. One being just access. Here in Salt Lake Valley, there's a huge difference between the east side and the west side. On just like where are the parks and who's got access to them and how well are they built. That's a big barrier. As well, there's a technological barrier where because of so much technology today, it's such a convenience to just like put your kid in front of a TV or an iPad rather than intentionally taking them outside and around the block in the park and playing. And so the barriers are about knowledge, technology, and just simply time. Because if you're a parent who's working 2 jobs, you might not have the time or energy to take your kid outside. And so these kind of barriers are things that work to prevent kids from really being in the outdoors and keeping them inside. At one point, Sadie did manage during COVID. She managed an inpatient girls' home for girls 11 to 17. And she really noticed during that time that the girls who spent more time on the outdoors definitely fostered more resilience and deeper connection with others. She noticed that they tended to be more open-minded and innovative, and even suggested that outdoorsiness might directly support like emotional growth and problem-solving skills, and that outdoors time in this inpatient girls center was so needed that they actually had to like schedule and block time so that they didn't just like, because it was an area, and so they had to really like tightly schedule it so that everyone could get the benefits of it. In her practice, I asked her, how do you like utilize outdoor space in your practice? And she said walk therapy, where she'll meet clients at a park and go on walks with them, and she will encourage her clients to literally touch grass and to go outside. Even a 20-minute weekly walk that can support mental health connections and progress towards therapy goals. So that was my conversation with Sadie. And then we'll move into Kaylin.
So the agency that we decided to look into is the Division of Family Services, DCFS, here in Utah. It's a government agency, and their one responsibility is just to protect children from abuse and neglect. But they want to try to protect children from abuse and neglect by first like making their own family and living situation stronger and trying to build that up more before just kind of like taking the family apart. But if it's necessary to take the kid out of the living situation, then they do like help with foster care and adoption and everything to just make sure the child is in a safe home. Okay, I'm going to the next slide. but DCFS's mission is keeping children safe from abuse and neglect, and like I said earlier, they are really like focused on that strengthening of the individual's family, which is really beautiful. And then going to the next slide. So a social worker's responsibility here at DCFS is pretty repetitive, but to protect the abuse and neglect from children and stuff. And this can look like them home visits and stuff like that, court situations, and then also connecting them to resources like housing, mental health care, and stuff like that. Their views here at this company, it's centered around child safety and family preservation, which, you know, the family kind of comes first in that situation. And their main goal is just to create and build a safe and stable environment for the kid, wherever that may be. And then it's Nessa.
All right, so salary and opportunities for advancement. As of October 2025, in the state of Utah, DCFS workers are approximately making $71,000 a year, which is equivalent to about $34.50 an hour. There's lots of opportunities to advance in this field, allowing people to earn more money over time. However, Utah, unfortunately, ranks last in the country for DCFS workers' pay, meaning the job market for these workers is not very active at this time. Next slide. Overall, job satisfaction has reported to be very bittersweet at DCFS. Just like any other really job that's working with like social workers and stuff. And many people say that the job is extremely rewarding, but also very difficult to work in because there's heavy workloads and lack of support that eventually leads to burnout. But overall, there is a big like rewarding factor because you get to see the difference that you make in not only the kids' lives but the family's lives. And then the next slide. This chart shows how DCFS is organized. The directors are at the top, and underneath are sections for regional support, program operations, and finance. Each region, like Salt Lake Valley and Northern Utah, has its own team that handles local cases. But as you can see, that's kind of the breakdown of how it's organized and how DCFS is built up. And then the next slide. So DCFS is a vital component to social work because it provides not only child protection, but also family support and case management for social workers. And the social workers collaborate with all kinds of places ranging from healthcare providers to schools to communities. And DCFS allows social workers to influence policy and implement programs and advocate for social justice, meaning that this is a key setting for both direct practice and broader systemic impact. And now moving on to the next page.
Concluding thoughts. You know, what's funny, when I think of social workers, I like the kind of archetype that's in my head is a DCFS worker. You know, that they get their hands really dirty, then they're on the ground and they're rubbing shoulders with the people who really need help. Like we said in the presentation, the job can be very rewarding and requires a lot of passion. And so, you know, for a social worker who has the passion for this kind of work, I think this could be a really rewarding place to be, to have a tangible impact on vulnerable communities, to be able to like actually see with your eyes and shake hands with people and the kids that you're actually working with. I think that's really important. Also, your job is not making someone else money. I think, especially us younger generations, just kind of that's an important part of what we are looking for in a career, especially if we're here in a social work class. Making someone else money is not necessarily what we're into, and yeah, so that's a big plus for us. And I could imagine, you know, Utah is obviously on the bottom of the pay scale, but in supportive regions, work can be impactful at the macro as well as the micro scale, as you can get opportunities to work on policy and not just, you know, on the micro family to family thing, but there's also an opportunity to get work done on larger issues as well. Obviously, the challenges are, no mystery to anyone. Probably a pretty big strain on your mental health as a social worker in DCFS, having to like kind of witness some of the hardest parts about being human and being in families with each other. Witnessing that every day, I think would be really hard. I think especially if you're in a non-supportive state, like, maybe Utah, you might potentially lose faith in social systems and their ability to help people. Pay, benefits, and support vary state for state. So, you buyer beware, your mileage may vary. And then also caseload to worker ratios are not balanced, and states that need a lot of work and not a lot of help, maybe there's not enough social workers to go around and to actually like balance out the work. And so, DCFS is, I think, like I said, I think it's the archetype for like social work and for the kind of people that are attracted to social work and the kind of people that make this work move forward. And buyer beware on whether or not you want to jump in and work with that agency. But that is our presentation, and that is our conclusion. Thank you for watching. Bye.